Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, you're going to practice your listening skills by listening to me talk about my journey from having no clue about what career to pursue to realizing that I really wanted to be an English teacher. But before we do that, if you're new here, let me introduce myself. My name is Eliana Capioto. I am an English teacher, as you already know, and I teach English online to Brazilian students. And in this channel, I make videos for you to practice your listening skills. So make sure to subscribe to my channel so that you get notified every time a new video is out. How are you going to study this video? I recommend that you watch this video 3 times. The first time you watch it without subtitles. This is for you to see how much you can understand without any previous studies. The second time you watch it with subtitles in English turned on. This is the moment for you to study this video. Every time I say something that you don't understand, any word or expression, pause the video and check the vocabulary. I really recommend that you use ChatGPT. So every time I say something you don't understand, you can copy that, write it on ChatGPT, and ask it to translate it for you into Portuguese. So get ready. Get your drink. Here I'm drinking water. Get your pen, your notebook or notes. Get comfortable and let's get started. So let's start by talking about high school. High school is the moment in our life when we are supposed to decide what we want to do for the rest of our lives, right? And while I saw some of my friends already having an idea of what they wanted to do and already deciding on which courses they wanted to do in university, I had no clue whatsoever. The only thing I knew was that I liked English very much because I was doing a course. I had been doing a course for 4 years, I think. I had an idea that maybe I'd like to do something related to English. That was all. So when I finished high school, I decided to take a break and not continue my formal studies, just continue with my English course and have a job for the first time in my life. So I applied for a job at a computer training school in a neighborhood not very far from my house. And I started working there at 18 years old. And it was all okay. I was having fun there. Everything was very new to me. And after working there for 1 year, I think, the school started offering English courses, survival English courses. And my boss, who knew that I could speak English well already, offered me the opportunity to get a group and teach English for the first time in my life. I remember very well the moment when he came to my office and talked to me about that. I remember how thrilled I felt at the opportunity of really using my English professionally somehow. So I got a group for myself, and without any training, I started teaching survival English. I remember the group had around 6 students, and they were all of mixed ages. There were elderly students, there were students in their 30s, 40s, and even teenagers. And as a first experience, it was very daunting. I felt quite uneasy in front of the class, especially because I was a very shy person. I continue to be a very shy person. I can pretend very well that I'm not shy, but I am. And I was still learning how to deal with that shyness. But they they were really friendly to me, and they really embraced me. They knew that was my first opportunity teaching English, and yeah, they were great students. And I keep those memories from my first group very dear to my heart. So at that time, there was another teacher there in that school teaching other groups, an English teacher. And in our breaks, we used to talk. And I remember one conversation that we had in which she told me that she had just graduated from university, that she had studied translation and interpretation at a certain university, and that she was very pleased with the course. And I told her that I was not sure what to study in university, but that I loved English. I also said that I was having a great time teaching that group, and she recommended that I did the same course. She said that that course would prepare me for a number of jobs, because there are so many jobs in which you can use your English. So if I studied translation and interpretation, I could be a translator, I could be an interpreter, I could be a proofreader, I could be an English teacher, and I could have other careers in which I could use my English. I remember coming back home and talking to my mom about this conversation that I had had with that colleague, and how excited I was about this idea of studying English in university and being able to use English in any career that I decided to pursue. And although I felt quite uneasy about the idea of pursuing an English teaching career, because as I told you, I was a very shy person, and just the idea of teaching in schools to big groups of people really kind of scared me. I felt like that course would give me the chance of doing that in case I wanted to do that in the future, besides all the other fields, all the other careers that I could pursue. So I decided to study translation and interpretation. I enrolled in the same course at the same university where my colleague had studied, and I enjoyed the course very much. As time went by and I delved deeper and deeper into the field of translation and interpretation, I could see myself more like a translator than as a teacher. So I put the idea of being a teacher behind me. But at the beginning of the second term, my English professor at university called me and invited me to be a monitor for the English course, the online English course that the university was offering all its students. And I liked the idea of being a monitor there. And also, I would get a 50% discount in my course if I did so. So, from the second term until how long was that for? I think it was for 6 months, maybe one term or two terms. I don't remember very well. I worked as a monitor for the university, and it was very, very fun. By that time, I had already registered at an internship website to get my first opportunity as an intern in my field. And by the beginning of the third term, I was invited for an interview at Cultura Inglesa, and I landed a job there as a pedagogical assistant. And one of my responsibilities there was to teach a few classes. So I remember that I had around 3 groups per term. I would teach adults, teenagers, and children. And all those ideas about being an English teacher came back to me because of that opportunity. At the end of my 2-year internship program at Cultura Inglesa, I was invited to become a permanent teacher there, and that made me so, so happy. But as I was in the last term at university and I had to put in a lot of hours to study and write my final paper, I felt like I wouldn't be able to juggle having a big number of groups in that language school, and also putting all the hours of study that I had to write my final paper at the same time. So I decided to decline the invitation and really focus on writing my final paper. So for one semester, for one whole term, I didn't work. I just studied. I read a lot to write my final paper. And thankfully, I had the help of my mother, who supported me in university during the time. And so I handed in my final paper to my professor, and she really liked it. And she suggested that I applied for publishing it in an USP, the University of São Paulo journal for translation. And I did so. And to my surprise, it was accepted and it was published. And it made me so proud of my work. I never thought that something that I could create, something that I could write, would be publishing material for a USP journal. So that made me realize that I can do it as anybody else who studies at USP or in any other of those well-known universities. By the way, just a parenthesis here. Since I published my paper in that journal, a number of other papers had been written and they had my study mentioned in them. And when I realized it, I was so thrilled, so excited. So since I realized that that was happening, around twice a year, I check my name online to see how many more papers are mentioning my study. If you want to check it out, I will link it here in the description of this video. So I graduated from university at the end of 2013, and because I had spent so much time studying to be a translator and an interpreter, I decided to give working as a translator a try. So I decided to apply for translating jobs at a number of translation agencies, and I got called by a big translation agency for an interview, and I landed the job and started working. And shortly after starting working there, I realized that I was not made for that. I didn't like being in front of the computer all the time, just working with papers. I really missed the interaction with people. So I tried to do it for almost 1 year, and then I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't bear it anymore. And I decided to quit the job. And that's when I started teaching English as a self-employed teacher. Back then, I would see my students in person in different places. So I would teach them in my house, I would teach them in their houses, in a library, in companies. So I was always traveling around. And by the end of my working days, I was so exhausted. So although I loved that job, I loved teaching English, I loved being around people, my students, that routine was really draining all the energy I had. But one day, a student of mine totally changed my life because she was moving to Portugal and she asked me if I could teach her online while she was already in Portugal. And that's what made me think about that. Like, yeah, I think I can do that. So I migrated my classes from in-person classes to the online environment for that student. And I liked it. And it was so much easier for me that I decided to migrate all my other classes to the online environment. And since then, I haven't taught in person anymore. I've always been teaching online. So Luisa, if you're watching this video, I'm very grateful for your opening my eyes to that opportunity. So what I like most about teaching English is the interaction I have with my students, is the conversations that we have. We talk about so many things. I get to know their points of view about different issues, different things. I learn a lot from them. And at the same time, I have a feeling of doing something important. I have a feeling that I can help them achieve their goals with what I can offer them. And that's what made me realize that being an English teacher is really something that gives me pleasure in life and is the career that I should pursue. After that, of course, I started investing in my education more to become a professional English teacher. So I've done a number of things. I've done a few courses. I've got a few certificates, both in Brazil and abroad. And this whole process has been very enjoyable. And I keep studying. I have never stopped studying, and I never will. So this is my story of how I became an English teacher. It's been a long time already since my first experience. I had my first experience when I was, I think, 19 years old, and now I am 32 years old or 33. No, I'm 32. I hope you liked watching this video. And now I want to know about you. What's your story? What made you decide do what you are doing right now professionally? Let me know here in the comments. This has become a long video, so you've practiced your listening skills a lot today here with me. And I'm sure that you took notes of lots of new words and expressions that you learned today. By the way, let me know here in the comments one word or expression that you love to learn today. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up because it helps me a lot. And I'll see you in the next one. All right? Bye-bye.